Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. My name, as always, Alec Etheridge, the sports editor here at the Shelby County Reporter, and we've got Week 7 to recap. We're looking ahead to Week 8 in this episode. A lot of things to touch on, specifically with the upcoming week. This past week, Week 7 of the high school football season, not much happening in the way of shocks or upsets or big storylines, but we did have Thompson and Briarwood both improved to 6-0 on the football season, and we had the Vincent Yellow Jackets pick up their third win in a row, the first time since 2014. They're now 4-2 on the season and 500 in region play, so they've got a strong shot to make the playoffs, which would be a huge storyline for Coach McKellar there in the Yellow Jackets. But plenty to look back at from Week 7 action. We'll do that. We'll also look ahead to what we have coming up this Friday night, some huge region matchups, playoff implications on the line for several football teams, whether they can clinch or whether they need a win to stay in the hunt for a playoff spot. So plenty to talk about looking ahead to Week 8 of the football season. We'll do that coming up. We'll also look ahead take a look at our SCR Star of the Week from Week 7. Plenty of names that we're going to talk about. It's one of those weeks where it's not just going to be one guy specifically, but a handful of different athletes who stood out this past Friday night. But we'll go ahead, we'll take a look back at everything, look ahead to Week 8 of the high school football season, and we'll start with our game of the week. It's going to be a busy week across Shelby County for high school football, as all but one of our 16 county teams will be taking part in a game this Friday night, but none's going to be bigger than the matchup at Jaguar Stadium this Friday between the Spain Park Jaguars and the Thompson Warriors. Thompson comes in as one of the hottest teams in the state right now. They pick up a 45-14 win over Vestavia this past Friday night. Vestavia was only giving up 10.2 points per game going into that matchup. But Spain Park, on the other hand, has got a very good offense in their own right. There's plenty of storylines to get to in this game, and it starts with Thompson. This is a chance for them to clinch their first playoff berth since 2006 if they can pick up a win in this game on Friday night. It also gives them a chance to win the region championship with a winnable game the week after, and then a matchup with Hoover, which should determine that chance. But it all starts this Friday night with Spain Park. Spain Park 9-2 all time in this series, but in the last time Thompson was able to pick up a win was back in 2008. So on the history side of things, Spain Park kind of got the edge. That being said, Thompson just brings in a ton of momentum. They're scoring 44.8 points per game, only giving up 17.3. And that defense is really a lot better than people are giving them credit for. The starters most likely only playing 3 quarters every week so far this season in most games. So the starters have really only been giving up between 7 and 10 points per game. So complete team-wise, Thompson's got the upper hand. Spain Park offensively is very good right now, putting up 35.5 points per game. They put up 35 this past Friday night in a win over Huffman, but were challenged in that one closely because their defense tended to struggle a little bit, especially in the second half. They give up 26, only pick up a 35-26 win over a team they probably should have beaten a little bit more handily. That being said, this is a Spain Park defense that started the year strong in those first 2 to 3 games, and I was very impressed for a team that was replacing a lot of guys. But over the last few weeks, they've kind of faltered and lowered a little bit. And now they're giving up around 24 points per game. I think 24 right on the number. And that's not something you want when you're going into a matchup with really the state's best offense that's scoring 45 points per game. So I think that's going to be the difference maker. That being said, Spain Park's offense is scoring 35.5 a game, which could keep this close. It could be a high-scoring affair. But Thompson has just been too much on both sides of the ball. I think that's going to be the difference maker. I think they do clinch that first playoff berth since 2006. Warrior Nation can celebrate that after the fact, but this is one of their biggest games of the year. Right now, before the new standings come out, number 3 versus number 8 in the 7A top 10. Big Region 3 matchup in that 7A classification. So nothing's set in stone until this game is finished. Both of these teams, very good football teams. Spain Park took both Hoover and Mountain Brook to the wire. They lose those in heartbreakers in the final 2 minutes, but they proved they can play and compete with anybody in the state in those 2 games. They could very well be 6-0 on the season right now. So a very good Spain Park team, a very good Thompson team, and it should create for one of our games of the year, to be honest with you, up to this point. So a very important matchup for both of these teams. Spain Park is still battling for that 3rd and 4th playoff spot with Mountain Brook and Vestavia. So a win here would go a long way for them to seal up a playoff spot as well. But I just think Thompson's going to be a little bit too much in this matchup on Friday night. As we always do after our game of the week, we'll go down classification by classification. Our only other 7A matchup this Friday night is going to be Oak Mountain taking on Tuscaloosa County at home over there at Hermont Park. And, Oak Mountain's really hurting right now, not just simply because they're coming off of 3 straight losses, and this past Friday night, a loss 59-7 to Hoover, but because they have several injuries on both sides of the ball, and it starts with Luke Purser and Ethan Duncan at the running back position. This is a team that really utilizes the quarterback and running backs in that option attack, and though Connor Webb can air the ball out, especially to his receiver, Carson Bobo, this is a big loss for them. Those two guys, Purser and Duncan, came into the season as the leading rushers and expected to carry a big load. So with both of them out, that's kind of put their offensive attack back a little bit, only averaging 16.8 points per game right now. That being said, they get a Tuscaloosa County team this Friday night, 1-6 on the season. They're only averaging 15 points per game. So Oak Mountain has a little bit of an upper hand here. They are the better team here, even with the injuries right now. Tuscaloosa County giving up 38.6 per game. So that should give the Eagles some confidence. They still have a shot at the playoffs. They have some tough games after this, but this is a good way to get some confidence moving forward into a matchup with Mountain Brook the following week and then Spain Park the week after that. If they can get some confidence, there's no telling what can happen, but I definitely expect them to get a little bit of growth on the offensive side of the ball as they take on Tuscaloosa County on Friday night. A big matchup looms this Friday night for the Pelham Panthers as they host Chilton County in a big region matchup, a game they really should win, but more importantly, a chance at a playoff berth. If Helena loses to Wetumpka, which is very likely considering Wetumpka is a top 4 team in Class 6A, and Pelham's able to pick up a win in this game, they clinch a playoff berth, first time since 2013. Otherwise, if Helena somehow wins and Pelham wins, Helena would still have to win out over some tough competition if they wanted a chance at the playoffs. But it looks like Pelham's going to have a strong shot at clinching this Friday night if they pick up a win against Chilton County, which they should do. The storyline in this game, both teams defensively, 33.3 points per game. Unbelievable that they're averaging that same amount given up to opponents, and that's not a good number either. Both those defenses struggling this season. The difference maker in the game, however, Chilton County only putting up 14.1 points per game. Pelham, on the other hand, 25.7. So that's going to be the difference. While both defenses are struggling, Chilton County's offense is not nearly at the level of Pelham's right now. Pelham sitting in a strong position on the season right now, while Chilton County's 1-6 overall. So they've struggled all season long and really just haven't been able to stop anything or score on anybody. So Pelham's got the upper hand in this one. I look for them to win this game, really running away in big in this matchup and clinch that playoff spot, because I do not expect Helena to pick up a win over Wetumpka. But we will talk about that game in just a second, because Helena is doing some things to show improvement as well. But Pelham right now sitting in a pretty spot. They've got a strong chance this Friday night to clinch that first playoff spot or playoff berth since 2013. As we just mentioned, Helena does have that big road matchup with number 4 Wetumpka this Friday night. Wetumpka's a team that scored 50-plus points in 3 straight games and has not scored less than 40 on the season. They're averaging 48.7 a game right now on the season. And Helena coming off a game they lost 42-14 this past Friday night to Opelika on the road. They've lost 4 games in a row. They're just not on the right end of things right now. And an offense that's only putting up 11 per game on the season. That's what's going to be a struggle in this one, is that this is a team where you're going to have to put up some points and really try to outscore them if you want to win. And right now, Helena's offense just reeling too much to be able to do so. They have improved from week 1 of the season. They started that game with Opelika strong last Friday night. I think they were tied 14-14 at one point. But then Opelika just ran away with it the rest of the game. So Helena is improving slightly every week. That being said, Wetumpka is one of the best teams in the state. It's just going to be too much for the Huskies this Friday night. But I do expect them to improve moving forward as they have all season long. Week after week, I've said that Chelsea is going to beat somebody that they're not supposed to beat, or beat somebody that they are supposed to beat. This Friday night, they get an Opelika team. It's not a team definitely that they're supposed to beat, but going in 0-6 to this matchup, Chelsea has improved each week of the season. They're fighting harder and harder, and their last 2 games, they've put up 23 and 28 points with an offense that had struggled up to that point. So they're finally getting some things clicking offensively. They're coming off a bye week. They had a chance with scoring back-to-back 20-plus point performances, they've had a chance to kind of get some momentum and use that in the bye week to build something moving forward into these last few games, whether it's tonight or this Friday against Opelika, which is going to be a struggle considering they're one of the best teams in the 6A classification, or whether it be the next week against Chilton County. Chelsea is not going to finish this season without a win. They fight too hard every week to finish this season winless. I'm not sure it's going to come Friday night against a very good Opelika team that's only giving up 16.1 points per game on the season, but I do think that following week against Chilton County, they're going to be able to pick up that win. That being said, they will challenge Opelika a lot closer than people probably think on Friday night in a big region matchup for those two teams. It starts every week on the defensive side of the ball for the Briarwood Lions. They do it again this past Friday night, a 31-6 win over St. Clair County. It was a battle, though, and then the coaching staff, the players, everything that you saw after that game was complimentary of how St. Clair County fought really hard in that game. They were testing Briarwood late into the second half of that game. They end up running away, though that defense does what it does every week, only giving up 6 points in that one. They've given up 7 or less in 4 of their 6 games this year, only giving up 8.3 overall in the season. The defense is just outstanding. But that being said, the offense every single week has continued to improve. Michael Ayers at the quarterback position, JR Tran-Reno at the running back position. Both of them have really turned up their game the last few weeks, and I'm impressed more and more every week by the way they're playing football right now. They're the number 1 team in 5A for a reason, and they're going to continue to be that way. This Friday night, they get an 0-6 Woodlawn team, only scoring 10 points per game. I'll be surprised if they put up any points in this matchup. Briarwood also is going to put up a lot of points on the offensive side with the way they've continued to progress and improve. It seems as if they have locked up the region championship. They clinch a playoff berth if they win on Friday night, but I don't see them losing a region game the rest of the way. They've gotten their toughest games out of the way. So right now it's just continue to stay healthy and build towards the playoffs that start here in about 4 or 5 weeks as the season continues to wind down. Calera will be hitting the road this Friday night. They travel to Jemison, a big region matchup for the Eagles there. They sit at 3-3 overall in the season, but have played a very difficult schedule so far. They're 2-1 in region play, which is really all that matters at this point. They're taking on a Jemison team that's 0-3 in that same region, 2-4 overall. A very average Jemison team that's scoring 22.8 points per game, giving up 22.7. So very even on both sides of the ball. And Calera is a few plays away from being 5-1 at this point on the season. They were within 1 possession of beating both May Jemison and Demopolis, both very good football teams. And against Jackson Olin, they lose that game 33-13 in their last outing, but several turnovers inside of their opponent's territory kept them from winning that game. They had a strong chance in that one as well, but just kind of made too many mistakes there to lose that one. They've come off a bye week now. They had a chance to get some things right. I think this Calera team is a very good football team, much better than their average record says, and the points per game defensive side of things that those stats show as well. This is a good Calera football team. They're building towards the playoff. They can clinch this Friday night if Sumter Central and Dallas County both lose. So and Calera wins, of course. But this is a good Calera football team. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I don't have any doubt that they're going to be in the playoffs, to be honest with you. And once they get there, this could be different than years past where they go out in the first or second round. They have a lot of talent. If they're healthy and can limit their mistakes moving forward the rest of their games, I think they've got a strong chance to make some noise the rest of the way. Coming into the season, I thought this was going to be the year that Shelby County would end that long playoff drought that dates back to 2009. I have a lot of faith in head coach Heath Childers and what he's doing there for the Wildcats. I think they're going to be fine moving forward in the future. But they had a strong offense coming back this year, and it's been up and down throughout the season. Hasn't been nearly as good as I expected it to be. And their defense, which needed a lot of improvements, giving up 30.3 points per game so far this year. They have an uphill battle. They're going to have to win out. They have 2 tough games. It starts this week with Pleasant Grove. Follow that up with a matchup against Briarwood on the road the week after. And then end the season with a very winnable game against Woodlawn. But it's an uphill battle right now for the Wildcats. They got to take it 1 week at a time. It starts this Friday night with Pleasant Grove, who is better on paper, but at this point in the season, they have the kind of team that can upset a Pleasant Grove team just simply because they can take some time off the clock, turn the clock, run the ball a lot, which is what they'll have to do to pick up a win. But moving forward, it's an uphill battle right now for the Shelby County Wildcats. Like Shelby County, Montevallo is reeling right now. They are pretty much forced to win out if they want a chance to make the playoffs. Sitting at 0-3 in region play, they've lost their last 3 in a row, and in those 3 games have given up 42 points in each one. And it's not just because it's not solely because Montevallo is struggling or playing bad right now. It's just because the injury bug has really hit them. They have a lot of their stars injured that were projected to do big things coming into the season. So they're forced to play some young athletes. This is good for their future. They have a lot of young guys getting some strong playing experience. They were already pretty young with guys that were going to be coming back next year anyways. So this is a valuable experience, not only for Coach Wilcox, but as guys moving forward. They're going to know how to play under him moving into next season. They get a matchup with Oakman this Friday night. Oakman 4-2 overall in the season. I believe 2-1 in region play. They should be favored to win this one. But with Gordo's coming up the week after as well, it's going to be tough for Montevallo to win out and make the playoffs this year. But like I said, getting some valuable experience for those young guys. They're fighting really hard on both sides of the ball. I like them moving forward, especially into next season with how much experience they're going to have back on next year's team. Head coach Wiley McKellar wakes up to his front yard TP'd with toilet paper all over the place for the 3rd week in a row after the Vincent Yellow Jackets won their third straight game for the first time since 2014. Also have picked up 2 region wins in their last 3 matchups as well, as they pick up a 34-7 win over Woodland this Friday night. That's the impressive thing. The last 3 wins in a row have been blowouts. They pick up a 38-7 win, 41-20 win, and a 34-7 win over their last 3 contests. So Vincent trending upward right now kicks the home stretch, though. They have 3 big games in a row. It starts this Friday night with Horseshoe Bend. They should be able to win that game. Horseshoe Bend sitting at 1-3 in region play, 2-4 overall, while the Yellow Jackets sit 4-2 overall, 2-2 in region play. Horseshoe Bend right now only scoring 16.5 points per game, giving up 28.7. That's something that Vincent's taken advantage of the past couple of weeks. I expect their defense to keep playing strong and their offense to keep putting up the kind of numbers they have the last few weeks, mainly behind Chris Hardy, who's got close to 500 yards rushing in the last 2 games alone. So they're in the right direction right now. They have a strong chance the week after that. They should pick up a win this Friday night. The 2 weeks after, they get Reeltown and Ranburne. Those are going to be the big-time deciding factors when it comes to the playoffs. Both those teams get the 2 toughest teams in the region this Friday night. They're taking on Lafayette and Lynette. So I expect Vincent to be right in the thick of things at 3-2 in region play after this week. That'll put them battling for not only that 4th place spot in the region, but that 3rd place spot as well, as they look to make the playoffs for the first time since 2014 as well. So I've said it all season. I expect 5 wins from Vincent at least. They're 1 game away from doing that. I think they get that 5th win this Friday night, and I think they're going to get even more moving forward. They've got too many playmakers that are believing right now. This is a strong Vincent team, an unbelievable storyline for what they're doing, considering that they had only won 1 game in the last 2 years coming in. So congrats to Vincent, congrats to Coach McKellar and all the players putting in hard work. We'll talk a little bit more about them in our next segment as we're kicking off our SCR Star of the Week for this past Friday night. Before we dive into our SCR Stars of the Week, which there are plenty of, we'll talk a little bit about the AISA and ACSC. We had a big matchup between Coosa Valley and Kingwood at Coosa Valley Academy on Friday night. In-county matchup, region matchup. Big for both teams when it comes to the playoff picture as well. Kingwood goes ahead 34-28 with 30 seconds remaining, but Coosa Valley from Kingwood's 45-yard line, as time expires, a Hail Mary from Caleb Allen to Chase Carley. They get the 34-32 win on the last-second Hail Mary after the ball was tipped around and fell into Carley's hands. So a big win for Coosa Valley there. Carley ended up with 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, also recovered 2 fumbles, had an interception on defense as well. So all-around impressive game from him. Also over at Cornerstone, they get a big 60-20 win over Evangel Montgomery, and that was behind Jake Blankenship's 200 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. An impressive night for him. They can clinch a playoff spot, as can Coosa Valley, if both of those teams win this Friday night. Evangel, they take on Lighthouse this past Friday night. Back and forth game. They were trailing by 14 points, I believe, at one point, able to come back. They win that game 64-55. And what can you say about Camden Smith? He's done it all the last few weeks, really all season for Evangel. He picks up 244 yards rushing at the quarterback position, 5 touchdowns rushing as well, had 6 total because he added 1 additional touchdown through the air. Hope, they fall in a tough matchup against Ezekiel. They lose that one 69-22 to snap their 2-game winning streak. So we'll see what that means for them going forward into the playoffs. But a strong week from all of our teams in the AISA and ACSC. We'll mention some of the rest as we start our SCR Star of the Week segment right now. This was another one of those weeks where it was just almost impossible to narrow it down to one individual SCR Star of the Week, not just because we had several great performances, but because we had several great performances on one individual team. So there were 3 or 4 players on several teams that stood out this past Friday night. We'll kind of go team by team, and I'll tell you which guys did stand out, and we'll start in Vincent's game as they pick up another big win. Chris Hardy does it again. He had 255 yards and 3 touchdowns to follow up his 4-touchdown, 213-yard game the week before. So he's got 468 yards total and 7 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Unbelievable what he's doing there. His offensive line also gets some kudos as well. It's unbelievable what they're doing over there to kind of carry that Vincent football team right now into a 3-game winning streak, which they'll look to continue this week. Also, the AISA, ACSC guys we just mentioned a few minutes ago. Chase Carley, his impressive night on both sides of the ball, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns receiving, 2 fumble recoveries, and an interception on the defensive side of the ball. Over at Cornerstone, Jake Blankenship done it all year, 200 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns to lead the way. He was responsible for more than 50% of their offense in that 60-20 win over Evangel Montgomery. We also had Camden Smith over at Evangel Alabaster, the Lightning. He gets 244 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns on the ground as well, 6 total touchdowns in that game. Very impressive. He's been doing it all really the last couple weeks, led them to a win over Cornerstone the week before. So Camden Smith doing it all for the Lightning right now. Moving over to the rest of our games, we'll start in 7A. And Thompson, the Warriors, they get back to it with the passing game. 454 total yards of offense this past Friday night. And it starts with Talia Tagovailoa. He does it again, 318 yards through the air passing. Also used his legs, 2 rushing touchdowns in that matchup. Found his favorite target after a down week the week before where Tagovailoa and Ahmad Edwards both struggled on the offensive side of the ball. You say a struggle. They still had great games that week. But they're least productive of the season so far. They bounced back. Tagovailoa, strong game. It led to Ahmad Edwards having a strong game as well. He had 127 yards receiving on just 7 catches. So an impressive performance for him yet again. I think that's his 4th or 5th game, probably his 5th game of the season, over 120 yards, which is just unbelievable. He's averaging close to 140 a game right now on the season. Also, Joseph Ford there at Thompson. Last week, he and Shadrick Bird, unbelievable. They rushed for close to 300 to 400 yards in that game. This week, they don't do the same. It just shows what they can utilize and how they can go about the game plan. But Ford still had 61 yards on just 6 carries, so he could have easily gone over 100 in this one had they used him a bit more. So just unbelievable what that Thompson offense is doing right now. They go into a showdown with Spain Park this Friday night. That's the next team we'll touch on. Their offense really has been clicking the last few games. It's been their defense that's been the struggle spot. But going into this matchup with Thompson should be fun to see these two teams light it up on the offensive side. Starts with Braxton Barker, 236 yards and 3 touchdowns in their win over Huffman this past Friday night. He helped them get to 406 total yards offensively. Also, his favorite target, Jalen McMillan, as it has been all year. 5 catches, 114 yards, a touchdown for him in that ball game as well. But it wasn't just the passing game and the receiving game that was big for Spain Park. They do it again. Jalen Henderson and Diari Johnson get back to it, both going over 100 yards. That's what this team needs to do if they want a chance to beat Thompson on Friday night. They've got to pound the ball, open up the passing game, every time that those two backs have done what they did in that game this past Friday night, Spain Park has been able to win rather handily. So very impressive for Henderson, 111 yards, and for Johnson, 105 yards. So offense is clicking for them right now. It's going to be fun to see those two explosive offenses Friday night in our game of the week. Also, another offense that's been clicking and improving each week. Their defense is the highlight. It's Briarwood, only giving up 8.8 points per game defensively. But on the offensive side of the ball, Michael Ayers improving each week. He did throw 2 interceptions this past Friday night, but 295 yards passing and 1 touchdown in that game. His favorite target, as always, Carson Eddy, 12 catches, 143 yards for him. Just unbelievable what the connection those two have. But throw into the mix JR Tran-Reno, who's really clicked the last 2 games after a somewhat slow start to the season. He has not just close to 90 yards rushing, but 90 yards receiving as well. His second week in a row where he's come close to 200 all-purpose yards, adds 4 touchdowns on top of that. So when you put that kind of offensive explosion with a defense that's only giving up 8.8 points per game, it's no wonder they're the number 1 team in the 5A classification. So a long 5-minute segment already. It's probably going to end up closer to 6 by the time I'm done. But unbelievable the amount of talent that we have sitting right here in Shelby County. A lot of them that probably go unnoticed as well. That people aren't talking about. So great performances by you guys this past Friday night. I look for even more this upcoming week as we have several big matchups coming up this Friday night. That's going to do it for this week's show, this week's SCR Star of the Week segment. I'll be out live at Spain Park this Friday night for our Facebook Live segment previewing that game of the week between Thompson and Spain Park. Very key for both of those teams. We'll also have some great coverage at all of our games this Friday night, as well as we have all but one county team playing this Friday night in an important matchup. So as always, I'm Alec Etheridge. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you this Friday night from our game of the week live at Spain Park High School.